Judge Koh, thank you for coming so far from Northern California to address this year's class of 2017. And thank you for your service as a federal judge.
Good morning. Thank you for the kind introduction, Dean Douglas, and thank you so much for inviting me to share this joyous occasion with the class of 2017 and all the people who've made this possible. Your family, your friends, the faculty, the staff, the administrators. It is such an honor to be at the nation's oldest law school that has as its mission to train citizen lawyers who lead for the greater good. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. Thank you for your decades of love and support for your families. So this is an occasion for both celebration and for reflection. And I'd like to take this time, especially it's Mother's Day, to reflect on some of the people who've been most influential in my life and ask that you do the same. And for me, those people are my grandmother and my parents, and they have some meaningful ties to both Williamsburg and William and Mary Law School. So my mom is a very quiet and private person, and it was not until we visited Colonial Williamsburg when I was in college that she dropped the bomb on our family, which was that she fled from North Korea at the age of 10. And walking around the very lush green landscape of Williamsburg reminded her of that trip. It took 2 weeks. She went over the mountains, and she got yellow fever along the way. It was actually illegal to cross. So whenever she saw any military officials, she would jump to the ground and start playing jacks to look like she was a local kid. And we were really surprised by the story. And I'm not sure how you should feel about the fact that your town reminds my mom of North Korea. Now, my family would not have come to America, and I would not be here today if it were not for the brave Americans like Louis B. Puller Sr., who grew up in a rural town in Virginia, yet traveled halfway around the world to defend South Korea on frozen ridges at Christmas time. And not only is he the most decorated Marine in the history of the United States Marine Corps, but he happens also to be the father of one of your proud graduates and the namesake of your Veterans Benefits Clinic, Louis B. Puller Jr., who won a Pulitzer Prize, 2 Purple Hearts, and a Silver Star. So let me start with my grandmother. My grandmother took care of me until I went to kindergarten, and many immigrants learn English from Sesame Street. We learned it from Days of Our Lives. She would lie on the couch, I would drape myself over her like a small blanket, and we would watch soap operas all day long. And my husband says it explains so much about me. So my grandmother was a person of utmost cultural traditionalism, but she was feisty. And when my grandfather passed away at 95, almost 95 years of age, he had never once stepped foot in a kitchen. He had never once poured himself a glass of water, and he never ate leftovers. To say he was pampered is the understatement of the millennium. But never eating leftovers sounds really good, doesn't it? So even though my grandmother never had dreams for herself, she had dreams for others. And once I asked her, I said, "Grandma, who'd you vote for?" She said, "The women." And she was passionate about her dreams for society. One of her dreams was that South Korea would become a democracy. And when I was about 3 years old, she took me to a democracy march that my dad had organized in Washington, D.C., and she insisted that we walk the whole march. And when I was very tired, she carried me on her back the rest of the way. So towards the end of her life, she was in a nursing home, and she had such a large and steady stream of visitors. The nurses asked us, did she used to be a movie star? But no one ever mistook my dad for a movie star. Even though he was extremely gregarious, he loved history, loved current events. As I said, he was passionate about democracy in Korea, and he read 3 newspapers every day. He watched morning, lunch, dinner, evening, local, national news. He watched CNN in between, and he had a steel trap memory. If you asked him, who's the president of Indonesia, he could tell you. My relatives in my husband's family who live in Mexico were shocked by how much he knew about the Mexican Revolution. And he tried to visit every U.S. presidential library and boyhood home. He would drive long distances to see any funeral processions for any U.S. presidents. He'd stand in the rain to watch. And as fate would have it, he would sell Slurpees and beef jerky in Columbia, Maryland. He would sell wigs and po' boy sandwiches in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and insurance and real estate in Norman, Oklahoma. But what he would have loved to do would have been a teacher. He would have made a fantastic high school history or government teacher. And he was a very gentle person and a gentle parent. And one example is that in first grade, I went to an all African-American elementary school in Port Gibson, Mississippi. And a couple of my classmates teased me a lot for being Asian. And so one day I said, I am dropping out of school. And he said, okay. He let me watch cartoons all morning, and at lunchtime he said, let's go. So he drove me the 45 minutes up to Port Gibson. We ate cheeseburgers at a restaurant, and then he dropped me off at school. And we didn't say one word that entire time. And we never spoke about this again until I reminded him about it before he passed away. And unlike the North Koreans in our family, our father had a gentle and understated way of resolving disputes. And in instances like this, it was a perfect touch. And he also had some delicious inconsistencies, which I think as a parent now is my prerogative. He couldn't eat carrots because they were too hard for his teeth, but he never missed a chance to eat peanut brittle. He couldn't drink milk because he was lactose intolerant, but he ate a bowl of ice cream every night. Sadly, he was diagnosed with cancer on March 1 of 2012, and within 4 days, the doctors removed both his stomach and his spleen. And he was extremely weak, extremely in pain, in and out of the hospital for the next 7 months. But he never spent a night at the hospital alone because my families or I always stayed with him. And incidentally, he was told that he had a few weeks to live on the day of the 2012 Apple v. Samsung jury verdict. So, class of 2017, balancing career and family can be impossible at times without a lot of help. And in my instance, when our 2 children were born, I was working at a law firm. My husband did not have tenure as a professor at a law school. We were both working extremely hard, and it was my parents who provided long hours of childcare. And my mom actually brought each child to my law firm to nurse twice daily, and then later once daily for a year, each kid. And my daughter always came to the office with a big smile. My colleagues always said she was the only one coming to work smiling. And one of my male colleagues said, I'd be smiling too if that's why I was coming to the office. When my husband worked in Washington, D.C. for almost 2 years, I stayed in California with our children, and my parents were crucial in providing even more childcare and transportation to and from preschool. So from a career that my mom began as a high school chemistry teacher in Korea, she actually came to the U.S., earned a PhD, and became a professor at a historically African-American college in Mississippi. In addition to raising 3 kids, she almost always worked full-time at my dad's various small businesses. For example, she styled most of the wigs at the wig store. So it's been a big burden for me to see that my mom did it all, so I feel a lot of pressure about what I need to do. But I was the only one in my family born in the U.S. They claim they found me in a garbage can in Washington, D.C. I claim that my real family was much more beautiful, smarter, and richer than they are. But immigrants born in Korea, like my grandmother and parents, were not allowed to become U.S. citizens until the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. And that was partly motivated by the Cold War and the Korean War, which was fought from 1950 to 1953. So all of us have these special people, special stories in our lives. Today, as one eventful chapter in your life comes to a close and another begins, let's pay tribute to all of them. And in 35 years, 25 years, 20 years, each of you will be, or perhaps you are now, these special people for others. And you will be providing the special stories in their lives. And you will be celebrated at their graduations. So in the chapter of your life you begin today, you join the ranks of lawyers, those to whom the law is entrusted. As you prepare to live this part of your story and to honor that trust, I want to reflect on some of the challenges that your generation of lawyers will face in the coming years. I see the beginnings of some of these in the litigation trends in the Northern District of California. So I just wanted to make 3 observations. So first, the types of technology cases are changing. Last year, our district's patent filings were at a 5-year low. The first quarter of 2017 patent filings are at a 6-year low. Now, this could possibly change depending on the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in T.C. Heartland v. Kraft. But while patent filings are down, trade secret privacy and data breach filings are up. My first data breach case was filed in 2013. Since then, data breaches have become more frequent and more massive in scale. Second, old laws are being applied to new technologies because technology is outpacing the law. For example, the California Public Utilities Commission, the successor to the California Railroad Commission, is using its authority to regulate stagecoaches to regulate Uber and Lyft. Similarly, privacy statutes, which were enacted to regulate conduct related to telephone communications and even mention switchboard operators, which are completely obsolete, are being applied to never-envisioned technologies. And this pattern of technology outpacing law will continue. For example, next year, companies intend to launch 2 tourists around the moon for 1 week. And other companies intend to take commercial passengers to outer space. But Congress has not reached consensus on whether and how the U.S. government should regulate commercial space activities. Similarly, although self-driving cars are on the road, only 13 states and the District of Columbia have enacted legislation to regulate autonomous vehicles. Third, there will be even more technology-related cases in the future. And some people say, that's just because she's from Silicon Valley and they have a distorted view of the world. And that could be true. But between 2004 and 2012, employment growth in high-tech outpaced private sector growth by a ratio of 3 to 1. Jobs in science, technology, engineering, and math outpaced job gains across all occupations by a ratio of 27 to 1. Employment predictions anticipate the demand for high-tech workers to increase 16.2% from 2011 to 2020. And a variety of studies show that immigrants will contribute significantly to that job growth. For example, according to the National Venture Capital Association, over the last 20 years, immigrants have founded or helped to found 25%, or 88 out of the 356 public U.S. companies backed by venture capital investors. And these include many of the biggest names in technology in terms of the companies that were founded. As a result, we'll continue to see the evolution of the types of cases brought. We'll continue to see technology outpacing the law. And let me give some more examples. The Federal Aviation Administration estimates that 2.5 million drones were sold in 2016. That number is going to more than triple to probably 7 million by 2020. So drones and self-driving cars can harvest a tremendous amount of data. They may present challenges related to national security and hacking, data breaches, privacy, torts, Fourth Amendment, and other issues. And while technology, automation, and artificial intelligence will create some jobs, they may destroy others. Since 2000, 5 million factory jobs have been eliminated. Self-driving cars may eliminate between 4.1 and 5 million jobs in the next 10 to 20 years. This could devastate families and communities across the country. Last November, I visited Oklahoma, where I went to high school, and I saw no less than 3 large businesses where you can sell the plasma in your blood for $50 a day, $100 a week, or $300 a month. The legal profession itself has not and will not be immune from these changes. And how we manage these difficult transitions will be one of the most important challenges of our time. And that's where you, William and Mary trained citizen lawyers will lead for the greater good. You will answer the questions about space, about self-driving cars, about drones. All of these issues remind us of how different the world is today from the one my grandmother and parents were born into an ocean away. But in other ways, the world hasn't changed so much. We learn not only from the Socratic dialogues in the classroom, but we learn from the lives led by those we love. We hope to learn from mistakes, to stand back up after failures, and remember that we are here because of those before us who helped us build a more secure family, a more perfect union, and a better world. We look for common ground, as Louis Puller Sr. did with the Koreans that he stood by 67 years ago. And like you, we'll need to find with other Americans who might have different dreams, different ideals, but we all share the same fate. We're defined not just by our goals and our skills, but by our relationships that center us, that help us reconcile ambition with humility, and remind us to stay true to the values and commitments we hold dear. So before you begin your life as a lawyer, I invite you to write down for safekeeping a list of your values and your commitments. Identify what you hope to achieve in your career. Identify what lines you are not willing to cross. Identify what circumstances require you to speak up or speak out. And identify what your responses will be if you're put to the test. And I invite you over the course of a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, go back and look at your list. See if you were put to the test. How did you respond? Has your list changed over time? Are you happy with that change, or is it just maturation? But I hope that you will reflect today. This is a really big step. You've reached a huge milestone in your life. And I so look forward to watching and seeing all of you contribute to the development of the law, to lead the legal profession, and to advance justice. Congratulations and thank you.